There is this universal paradox about the human experience that is just so incredibly obvious.
Oh, yeah.
Yet we spend almost our entire lives desperately trying to ignore it. I mean, we arrive in this world completely empty-handed. We come in with nothing to our name, just these little tight clenched fists.
Right. Nothing at all.
And when it's all over, we depart with open hands. We take absolutely nothing with us. The luggage allowance for the afterlife is strictly zero.
Exactly zero.
The truth of that is undeniable.
Yeah.
It is staring us right in the face. So why are we so intensely, overwhelmingly obsessed with hoarding every single thing we can get our hands on in between those two moments?
It really is the ultimate contradiction of being human. I mean, we know the destination. We know we can't take it with us. And yet, our daily behavior suggests we believe we can somehow, pack a U-Haul for eternity.
Yeah, we really do act like that.
We're driven by this relentless, almost mechanical engine of accumulation, and we rarely stop to ask what that engine is actually doing to our minds.
Which is exactly why we are dedicating this deep dive to understanding that exact drive. We have a fascinating sack of source material today, centered around an essay titled Excess Dangerous to Life by Shuofeng. And the translation we're looking at was edited by Kinyu.
It's a fantastic piece of writing.
It really is. And our mission today is to really get into the underlying psychology of overaccumulation. We are going to look at the severe anxiety it breeds, the way it distorts our reality, and what a tiny, highly neurotic desert rodent can actually teach us about our own modern burnout.
Oh, the desert rodent. I love this part.
Right. Okay, let's unpack this. Because to understand human billionaires, internet arguments, and our own daily anxieties, we actually need to start our journey right in the middle of the Sahara Desert.
We really do. So there is a specific species of sand rat that lives out in the Sahara, and their behavior is detailed perfectly in one of our sources. It's an article called The Anxiety of the Sand Rat by Xing Zhu.
Okay, so paint a picture of this for us.
Well, you would naturally expect any creature living in an environment as harsh and, unforgiving as the Sahara to be hardworking. Survival there is just not a given.
No, absolutely not. It's brutal.
Right. But these sand rats take diligence to a completely different level. When the dry season is approaching, they go into absolute overdrive, just working tirelessly, frantically to gather grassroots to sustain themselves.
Which, on the surface, that makes perfect sense. If I know a massive, once-in-a-generation winter storm is coming, I am going straight to the grocery store. I am stocking up on canned soup, bottled water, batteries. That is just basic, logical survival prepping.
Right. It's just being responsible.
Exactly. But as we look at the behavior of these animals, it forces a really critical question. At what point does rational, basic survival prepping cross the line into completely irrational, self-destructive hoarding?
That is the big question.
Because these rats, they don't just prep, they obsess. Even when they have plenty stored, they cannot stop searching, gnawing, and hauling roots back to their burrows.
What's fascinating here is the math. If we break down the math from the source, a single sand rat needs exactly 2 kilograms of grass roots to survive the entire dry season.
Okay, 2 kilograms. That's the baseline.
That is their required caloric baseline to make it through until food is plentiful again. Just 2 kilograms. But their instinct doesn't have an off switch. They don't stop at 2. They relentlessly gather 10 kilograms.
Wait, so they are bringing in 5 times what their biology actually requires.
5 times. And here's where the behavior moves from a quirky survival tactic to an actively punishing lifestyle. Because they gather so much massive excess, they can't possibly eat it all. It is physically impossible.
So what happens to the rest of it?
Well, the extra 8 kilograms of grass roots just sit inside their narrow underground burrows and they begin to rot. Yeah, it's terrible. Now, not only did that animal expend a massive amount of unnecessary caloric energy frantically gathering all of that extra food in the desert heat, but now they have to spend even more energy painstakingly cleaning this decomposed, rotting, foul-smelling mess out of their own living spaces.
Wow. They literally create their own nightmare.
They absolutely do.
It's incredibly tragic, but it's also just kind of absurd. But there's a laboratory experiment mentioned in the research that takes this from just a weird quirk of desert nature into a really profound psychological study.
Yes, the cage experiment.
Right. Researchers took these sand rats out of the Sahara and put them in climate-controlled cages, and they gave them ample food every single day.
Endless food.
Endless food. The rats were perfectly safe. They were perfectly fed. There were no predators, no dry season approaching. They had zero logical reason to worry about starvation. And what happened? They quickly became severely anxious, Their health rapidly deteriorated, and they died.
Because the anxiety fundamentally overwhelmed their physiological systems. But the why is the most crucial part here.
Yeah, why panic when you have a full bowl of food right in front of you?
Well, it turns out they were panicking because they were physically prevented from performing the act of gathering and hoarding. The food itself, the actual calories, wasn't what gave their nervous system a sense of security.
Oh, I see. It was the physical accumulation.
Exactly. It was the action. Without the ability to constantly amass a stockpile of grass roots, their brains could never signal that they were safe, even in a totally secure environment. They are trapped in a psychological cage long before they are ever put in a physical one.
And there is this ultimate dark irony to all of this. 4/5 of the work these rats do, gathering that extra 8 kilograms, is not just unnecessary, it's actively harmful to their own environment.
Right? Because think about where they live.
Yeah, by obsessively gnawing off every single grass root they can find to build these rotting piles, they're making an already barren desert even more barren. They're destroying the very ecosystem that keeps them alive.
They literally are digging their own graves.
Exactly. They reduce their future chances of survival just to soothe their present anxiety.
It's a perfect closed loop of self-destruction. They destroy their home to feel safe in the moment, ensuring they will be less safe tomorrow.
And just sitting with that image, this tiny creature frantically tearing up its own world to build a rotting pile of food it will never eat. It sets up the central pivot of all this source material.
Which is us.
Right. And we look at these rodents, and we can so clearly see how foolish, how completely irrational their behavior is. What does that say about human beings?
It says that we are the human sand rats. If you lay this biological metaphor right over our modern human behavior, the fit is uncomfortably perfect.
Uncomfortably perfect is a great way to put it.
We see this constantly, especially at the highest levels of wealth. Think about the businessmen mentioned in the text, the ones who are already multimillionaires or billionaires.
Right.
They have accumulated enough financial wealth to support their families and their children's families for the rest of their natural lives. Their dry season is permanently covered. They have their 2 kilograms of roots.
They probably have 2 million kilograms of roots.
Exactly. And yet they continue to toil day and night. The author of the essay flat out asks, why bother?
But I have to push back a little here. It is really easy for us to sit back and psychoanalyze billionaires and say they are hoarding unnecessarily. But for a normal middle-class person trying to save for a house or retirement in today's unpredictable economy, isn't that drive to accumulate just responsible planning?
That is such an important distinction to make.
Right, because we don't want to shame people for wanting security.
Exactly. Planning is about securing your baseline, getting the 2 kilograms you need to survive the winter. The sand rat mentality takes over when the accumulation becomes totally disconnected from actual utility.
Okay, that makes sense.
We can look at a very specific, tragic extreme of this mentality from the source material. Consider the case of a 36-year-old vice director of a provincial finance department.
Oh, this story was wild.
Right. At 36, he is in the absolute prime of his life. He has achieved a highly successful career, significant social status, and a very comfortable income. His baseline is fully secure.
He has his 2 kilograms.
He does. But he was deeply dissatisfied. He had that unquenchable sand rat anxiety. He felt the need for the extra 8 kilograms.
But what did he do?
He took a bribe. And then another bribe, and another. Not because he needed food or shelter, but for the dopamine hit of accumulation.
Just piling up roots.
Just piling them up, until eventually the entire scheme unraveled. He was exposed, caught, and sent to prison. He sacrificed his freedom, his reputation, his entire prime. For what?
For things he never actually needed.
Exactly. He traded his actual lived life for the fleeting illusion of security that comes from excess. He gathered the extra roots, and it destroyed his burrow.
Here's where it gets really interesting, though, because hoarding money or physical stuff, that's obvious. We can all see that. But this mechanism in our brain doesn't just stop at material goods.
Oh, absolutely not.
We hoard totally abstract things. We hoard information. We hoard status. We hoard being right. Think about the culture of internet forums and social media. You have people who are obsessively, tirelessly commenting on every single topic under the sun. Science, religion, politics.
Day and night.
Day and night. They are typing furiously, getting into massive arguments with strangers, completely consumed by this endless pursuit. And you have to ask, what are they actually trying to achieve?
If we connect this to the bigger picture and look at the psychology behind it, you see that those internet commenters are driven by the exact same neurological mechanism as the sand rat.
Oh, really? How so?
Well, just like the rats, humans often only feel secure when they have accumulated vastly more than they actually need, whether that's money or, in this case, social dominance. When you win an argument online, your brain gives you a little hit of dopamine. It feels like you just gathered a root.
Wow. So it is the need to feel padded, protected by layers of being right, just like a layer of physical supplies.
Precisely. We equate social currency and information with physical security. And without that excess padding, even when we are perfectly well-fed, sitting in our safe, climate-controlled homes, facing absolutely no real threats to our survival, we suffer.
We become the caged rats.
Yes, we become the caged rats with a full food bowl, suffering from severe anxiety because we aren't currently hoarding social dominance.
That shifts the conversation in such a profound way. We hoard physical things, we hoard opinions. But there is something else we hoard that is completely invisible and, honestly, maybe the most damaging of all. We hoard our future worries.
Oh, that is such a huge one.
I want you, the listener, to really think about this for a second. How much of your daily, precious cognitive energy is spent stressing over and planning for events that haven't even happened yet?
There is a really poignant anecdote in our source material about exactly this. A family member of the author, a young woman who is only 23 years old, writes a letter expressing deep, overwhelming distress.
Right, she's terrified.
She is complaining heavily about how she is ever going to afford future college tuition for her child, who is currently exactly 1 year old.
Okay, hold on. Again, I have to play devil's advocate here. Calling a mother who is worried about her kid's education a sand rat feels incredibly harsh. I mean, college is absurdly expensive.
It is, absolutely.
Saving for a 1-year-old isn't some irrational psychosis. In today's world, if you don't start planning when they are born, you fail. That just sounds like responsible modern parenting to me.
It's a very fair point. And it's important to separate the action from the suffering. Setting up a college savings account and depositing $50 a month, that is responsible planning. That is securing the future.
Okay, so where does she cross the line?
She crosses the line because she is agonizing. She isn't just planning, she is letting the sheer terror of an event 17 years in the future completely consume her present reality. The author responds to her with a very serious, intense tone.
What does he say?
He tells her, live for today. Do you know what will happen tomorrow? Tomorrow hasn't arrived yet, so why let it ruin you?
Wow, that's blunt. But it makes perfect sense. It's the difference between doing something about it and just suffering over it.
Yeah.
Like, imagine you were carrying a heavy, fully open umbrella every single day of your life, just in case there's a thunderstorm 5 years from now.
That is a perfect analogy.
Right. Why are we so eager to let the future crush our present?
Because we think hoarding worry somehow prepares us for the danger. But it's an illusion. And the author explains the deeper philosophical warning here, which is that human life is finite. We only have so much time.
We have a strictly limited battery life.
Yes. And when we focus the entirety of our time on accumulation, gathering extra money, extra arguments, or stockpiling future worries, we pay a terrible price.
Yeah.
We lose our precious time and miss the profound opportunity to, as the text calls it, sublimate our lives.
And sublimating our lives basically means elevating our existence beyond just the raw mechanical functions of biological survival. If you spend your entire life entirely focused on furiously digging up grassroots, you never actually look up to see the beauty of the desert.
You never experience profound stillness or connection. You just operate as a highly stressed machine until you die.
Which is a tragedy on an individual level. It really is. But this deep dive doesn't stop at the individual. Because if one person acting like a frantic sand rat ruins their own life, what happens when billions of people do it simultaneously?
This raises an important question about our global future. And the source material issues a very stark warning here about the macro cost of all these extra grassroots.
Okay, lay it out for us.
Think about the macro level. As the global population continues to increase, and as Earth's natural resources inevitably dwindle, you would hope humanity would become more efficient. But the psychological desire to accumulate extra grassroots doesn't decrease. In fact, scarcity actually triggers the sand rat brain even harder.
Oh, man. It creates a massive devastating, vicious cycle. Everyone feels the panic of scarcity, so everyone hoards more than they need, which creates actual literal scarcity,
Right.
which just validates the initial panic and makes people hoard even more.
Exactly. And the societal danger here is immense. The underlying argument in the essay is that even if humanity manages to achieve sustained global peace and massive technological development, it might not ultimately save us.
Wait, really? Why not?
Because if we fundamentally fail to eliminate this deep-seated sand rat anxiety from our collective psychology, global resources will eventually, mathematically, run out. We will literally gnaw every last root in the desert. And when the grassroots are gone, what happens to the rats?
They die.
Exactly.
It is a genuinely chilling thought, especially because we have seen it happen. We know exactly what this looks like on a societal scale. The text points to a very specific historical example to ground this concept. A mass purchasing frenzy that swept through China during the early 1980s.
Yes, the panic buying.
Right, it was a nationwide panic.
Yeah.
People were absolutely terrified that if they didn't buy consumer goods immediately, those items would vanish from shelves permanently or prices would skyrocket and make them impossible to afford.
And the psychology behind that is fascinating. When you see your neighbor sprinting to the store to buy 10 bags of rice, your primal brain screams that they know about a threat you don't. It overrides all logic.
It's pure contagion.
Yes, people bought things they didn't even need, completely emptying their bank accounts, purely out of the sheer terror of future lack.
It was the sand rat mentality manifesting on a massive scale. And I have to ask you, the listener, right now, have you ever felt that? Have you ever felt that sudden, invisible wave of societal panic sweeping through your community, driving you to the store to panic buy goods out of sheer terror, just because everyone else is doing it?
It is such a powerful, overwhelming biological pull.
It is. But as grim as all of this sounds, the rotting roofs, the ruined careers, the societal panics there is a way out. Though, moving from the problem to the solution, the author of the essay notes something important. He admits that it is easy to know the way, is hard to actually walk the way, and it is even harder to uphold it consistently.
Because we are fighting millions of years of evolutionary hardwiring. But the source material introduces some incredibly powerful spiritual and philosophical counterweights.
What kind of counterweights?
Well, it highlights the teachings of Jesus, for example. Specifically the command, do not worry about tomorrow. And the idea to seek first the kingdom of the greatest creator with the promise that all other necessities will be given to you.
Right.
And it asks that ultimate piercing question. What good is it for someone to gain the whole world, yet forfeit their soul?
Which perfectly maps onto our metaphor. Gaining the whole world is successfully gathering every single grass root in the desert. But if you forfeit your soul, if you die of anxiety in a cage made of your own excess, what did you actually win?
You lost. The text also brings in the wisdom of the Buddha, pointing to the instruction to live fully and deeply in the present moment, to go with the flow of life, and to follow the natural course of things rather than constantly fighting and striving.
So what does this all mean? How do we synthesize this ancient wisdom for a modern listener? What we're learning here is that these teachings, living in the present, not borrowing tomorrow's grief, they aren't just spiritual platitudes. They are direct, practical remedies for sand rat anxiety.
They are the psychological off switch that the rat lacks, but that we possess. We can look at the 10 kilograms of roots, feel the anxiety telling us to gather more, and consciously pause. We can say, my baseline is met. I am choosing to stop.
Which brings us to the core takeaway from Xu Feng's essay. Excess is dangerous to life. Gathering 10 kilograms of roots when you only need 2 does not buy you safety. It just leaves you exhausted with a burrow full of rotten roots that you now have to clean out.
So, to you listening right now, we ask you to evaluate your own life. Are you sacrificing your present peace to build a stockpile of wealth or status or future worry that you will never actually use?
We come into this world with clenched fists and we leave with open hands. If we know that our constant obsessive gathering is slowly stripping our own personal desert bare, what is one grass root, one unnecessary worry or pursuit that you can intentionally leave in the ground tomorrow to break your cycle of anxiety?
Just one thing. Let your hands open just a little bit.
Exactly. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. We'll see you next time.